When I went to the hospital to get a tampon removed, I ran into my ex-boyfriend. He was wearing a mask, and under his silver-framed glasses, his peach blossom eyes were deep and profound. His white coat was buttoned up, and in the summer heat, he wore only a white short-sleeved shirt underneath. Through the thin fabric, you could vaguely make out the outline of his well-built physique. It had been years since we last met, and he had become even more strikingly handsome. When he spoke, his voice was magnetic and captivating. "Take off your pants and spread your legs." To swim during my period, I used a tampon. Now, I couldn't get it out. To make matters worse, the doctor I was assigned to was my ex-boyfriend. Was it too late to run away now? Staring at the familiar handsome face and the name Shen Siqian on the display screen, I desperately wanted to turn around and leave. Standing at the door, I raised my hand to knock but hesitated, then lowered it again. When I glanced back, everyone around me was giving me strange looks. I forced an awkward smile and mustered the courage to knock. "Come in." That pleasant voice was annoyingly familiar. I took a deep breath and stepped into the consultation room. As soon as I entered, I met Shen Siqian's gaze and nearly tripped over my own feet. "Lin Yi-chan?" Shen Siqian raised an eyebrow, a flicker of surprise in his peach blossom eyes. "It's me." I pretended to be calm and nodded with an air of dignity. "What's wrong?" I smoothed my curly hair, glanced into the distance and replied coolly, "My tampon went in too far and I can't get it out." "Theft." Shen Siqian burst out laughing. He lowered his head slightly, and the eyes above his mask curved like rippling water. My ears flushed red as I glared at him indignantly. "Is there something wrong with that?" No." He cleared his throat, suppressing his laughter, and returned to his professional demeanor. "Are you a virgin?" "What?" My eyes widened and I shot him a disdainful look. TSK. Shen Siqian had become so nosy. You never really know someone. If you're a virgin, removing the tampon carries the risk of breaking your hymen. Shen Siqian seemed to see through my thoughts and explained without changing his expression. My heart skipped a beat. That was a significant risk. I closed my eyes, then abruptly opened them and met Shen Siqian's gaze firmly. "Dr. Shen, I trust your skills. For something this simple, I'm sure you won't make any mistakes. If anything went wrong, it would be a reflection of his incompetence." Shen Siqian caught the implied meaning behind my words and raised an eyebrow, not backing down. "That's not certain." He stood up and pulled aside a nearby curtain. "Come with me." I put down my bag and followed him, taking the chance to study Shen Siqian. He was wearing a mask, and under his silver-framed glasses, his peach blossom eyes were deep and profound. His white coat was buttoned up, and in the summer heat, he wore only a white short-sleeved shirt underneath. Through the thin fabric, you could vaguely make out the outline of his well-built physique. It had been years since we last met, and he had become even more strikingly handsome. Shen Siqian pointed to a nearby chair. When he spoke, his voice was magnetic and captivating. "Take a paper pad and sit here. Take off your pants and spread your legs." I looked at his tall, lean figure and froze on the spot. His tone made it hard not to misunderstand. I recalled that New Year's Eve during my second year of high school. Braving heavy snow, I sneaked out and went to Shen Siqian's building. I called him, unable to hide my excitement. "Shen Siqian, come down quickly." He appeared in my sight almost instantly, wearing a white down jacket, standing out even in the snow. He looked like a character straight out of a painting. Shen Siqian smiled gently at me, his eyes sparkling. He patted my head and unwrapped his scarf to wrap it around me. "It's so cold. Why didn't you wear a scarf?" His fresh, clean scent enveloped me instantly. I was in too much of a hurry when I left. I took his hand and gave it a gentle shake. "Close your eyes." Shen Siqian obediently closed his eyes. His eyelashes were long and curly. His nose was tall and straight, and his lips were a soft shade of red. I pulled a ring box from my pocket. "Open your eyes." I opened the box to reveal a pair of silver rings, glowing softly under the streetlight. I took out the men's ring and slowly slid it onto his finger. "Happy New Year, Shen Siqian." He looked down at me, his eyes shimmering like gentle waves, overflowing with tenderness. Shen Siqian leaned in, his handsome face gradually filling my view. A soft touch landed on my lips. Shen Siqian traced the outline of my mouth with his tongue, then gently parted my lips and deepened the kiss. The sensation of our tongues meeting sent waves of tingles through me. He wrapped an arm around my waist and cut the back of my head, intensifying the kiss. The sound of our lips and tongues mingling was soft and intimate. When the kiss ended, he pulled back slightly. His tall nose brushed against my cheek, and the warmth of his breath caressed my skin. Lin Yichan. Shen Siqian's eyes were slightly red at the corners, his voice low and husky. Happy New Year. His Adam's apple bobbed slightly as he cut my face with his cool hands and pressed a light kiss to my cheek. At that moment, fireworks exploded behind him, painting the dark night sky with vibrant flowing light. You are the best New Year's gift. Feeling the cold instrument moving inside me, and thinking about the awkward position I was in, especially with Shen Siqian right there. A wave of shame washed over me. I turned my head away in despair, staring at the plain white wall. Done. Shen Siqian's words made me let out a long sigh of relief. As if recharged with energy, I pulled up my pants and sprang up from the chair. Did you bring a sanitary pad? My hands, which were still holding my pants, froze mid-air. When I left in the morning, I had only brought one tampon. Thinking about the source of today's pain, I had no intention of using it again. Wait here. I'll go borrow one for you. Shen Siqian strode toward the door, thoughtfully closing the curtain behind him. Who knew he'd be so considerate? I clicked my tongue in admiration and began observing the consultation room. The floor was spotless, everything was neatly arranged, and there was a potted plant by the window very fitting for Shen Siqian's personality. Hearing footsteps, I looked up to see Shen Siqian walking toward me. He pulled a sanitary pad from his pocket. His fingers were pale and slender, and against the pink packaging of the pad, they looked even more alluring. Change here. I'll wait outside. After handing me the pad, he politely walked out, giving me privacy. At least he has some self-awareness. I nodded, appreciating his discretion. After all, who would want to change a sanitary pad in front of their ex? Even though we'd already. The thought of our previous intimacy made my cheeks flush slightly. Lin Yichan, get a grip. I gave my forehead a firm pat, forcing myself to calm down. It's fine. We probably won't see each other again anyway. This embarrassing experience will fade with time. Fanning my face with my hand, I pretended to be calm, pushed aside the curtain, and sat across from Shen Siqian. He was looking at the screen, his features handsome and refined. Rest well when you get back. Avoid exercise for the next few days, eat light foods, and maintain good personal hygiene. Okay, thank you, Dr. Shen. If there's nothing else, I'll head back now. I didn't want to stay a second longer. Grabbing my bag, I hurried toward the door. But before I could take more than a few steps, Shen Siqian called out to me. Lin Yichan. I forced a smile and turned around, staring into his dark eyes, worried he might say something shocking. You haven't paid yet. Shen Siqian adjusted his glasses, slid the payment slip to the edge of the table, and tapped it with his finger. If I were guilty of anything, my clients would punish me, not make me embarrass myself repeatedly in front of Shen Siqian. Trembling, I picked up the slip, pulled out my phone, and scanned the QR code. My hands shook like I had Parkinson's as I entered the password. Done. I forced a smile, nodded at Shen Siqian, and walked out of the consultation room at 1.5 times my usual speed. Riding the escalator down, I replayed the day's events and wished I could just disappear into thin air. When I reached the first floor, my phone rang. Seeing Dao Yingying on the screen, I immediately answered. Dao I wailed into the phone, sitting in the registration hall, dramatically recounting my miserable ordeal. Dao Yingying was my high school deskmate, and she knew all about my history with Shen Siqian. On the other end of the line, Jingying laughed heartlessly. Lin Yichan, you two are truly a match made in hell. What's that saying again? Fated to be a quarreling couple. I heard Shen Siqian is single now. Maybe there's still a chance for you too. Dao Yingying grew more and more excited, even adopting an exaggerated tone. He, the aloof, restrained doctor. She, the lively, glamorous manager. Reunited after years apart, can the once sweet couple rekindle their romance? The hospital, where they... Enough. I interrupted her, rubbing my temples. I have things to do. I'll hang up now. After ending the call, I couldn't help but frown. My free hand pressed against my lower abdomen, where a sharp, cramping pain had begun. What's going on? I took a sharp breath, feeling as if a hollow emptiness had opened up in my lower abdomen, accompanied by a chilling cold and a stabbing pain. Clutching my stomach, tears welled up in my eyes from the pain, and I instinctively curled forward. Was Shen Siqian a quack? Did he mess something up? I thought bitterly, hunched over as I tried to stand up to register again. Before I could take a single step, the intense pain twisted my face, and tears streamed down my cheeks. I slumped back into the chair, wiped away my tears, and looked around helplessly. It seemed I had no choice but to ask a doctor or nurse for help. Gasping for breath, I leaned back in the chair, clutching my stomach. Through my tear-blurred vision, I saw a figure in white approaching me. I blinked away the tears and looked up at the person standing before me. It was Shen Siqian. He blocked the harsh overhead light, his tall figure casting a shadow over me. Stomach ache? I nodded weakly. Shen Siqian bent down, one hand resting on the armrest of the chair, the other pressing gently against my lower abdomen. Let go of your hand first. I lowered my arm, letting his hand press against my stomach. Is it painful here? I grimaced in pain, and the tears I had barely held back began flowing again. Shen Siqian sighed softly, then reached out and wiped the tears from my cheeks. The faint scent of laundry detergent lingered around him, filling my senses. Wait here. I'll go register for you. He patted my shoulder reassuringly before quickly walking away. Moments later, Shen Siqian returned with a registration slip, his tone gentle. I'll take you for an 4 drip. Before I could react, he bent down, hooked one arm under my knees and the other around my back, lifting me into his arms. My face pressed against his chest, feeling the solid muscle beneath. Looking up, I could see his clean, sharp jawline. His presence enveloped me, bringing an unexpected sense of calm. In a daze, I remembered that he had carried me like this back in high school too. It was during a pay class. Our class was playing volleyball in groups, and while trying to catch the ball, I sprained my ankle in a hurry. Shen Siqian saw it happen, immediately dashed across the net, and ran toward me. Back then, he had picked me up just like this and carried me to the infirmary. The image of that young, earnest boy in his school uniform overlapped with the mature man before me now. I tilted my head slightly and sniffled. Shen Siqian. He didn't stop walking but looked down at me, his eyes like gentle spring water. After all these years, you still use the same laundry detergent. Outside the window, the sky gradually darkened, and the afternoon's heat slowly faded away. I leaned back weakly in the chair, watching the medicine drip slowly through the IV tube. The medication seemed to be taking effect, as the pain in my lower abdomen began to ease. I turned my head and saw Shen Siqian sitting beside me. He had taken off his mask. Under the light, his skin looked even fairer. His eyes were lowered, focused on his phone, his thick eyelashes casting a faint shadow. His nose was straight, and his thin lips were slightly pressed together, a sight that was hard to look away from. A breeze drifted in through the window, carrying the coolness of the evening. I couldn't help but shiver slightly. As if sensing it, Shen Siqian looked up at me. I'll get you a blanket. He pushed himself up from his knees and soon disappeared from my sight. When he returned, Shen Siqian had a blanket draped over his arm and a bag in his hand. I thought you might be hungry, so I bought you some congee. He set the congee down and spread the blanket over my lower abdomen. I hadn't even realized it until Shen Siqian mentioned it, but I hadn't eaten anything since morning. A hollow feeling of hunger suddenly washed over me. Shen Siqian unwrapped the packaging, and steam rose from the congee, filling the air with its comforting aroma. I swallowed hard and shifted slightly, reaching for the spoon. Don't move. Seeing me struggling to reach, Shen Siqian stopped me. He picked up the bowl, scooped a spoonful of congee, and blew on it gently. I can actually eat by myself, I said weakly, watching his natural movements. You're still on N4. It's not very convenient. Let me feed you. Shen Siqian spoke softly, but his tone left no room for argument. Okay. I nodded and took the spoonful of congee he offered. Seeing my cooperation, Shen Siqian's lips curled into a smile. His peach blossom eyes focused on me, filled with warmth and gentleness. Good girl. He stirred the congee again. His fair, slender fingers holding the spoon were quite a pleasing sight. Shen Siqian was incredibly patient. Before each spoonful, he watched my pace, making sure I had completely swallowed before offering the next bite. After finishing most of the bowl, my stomach felt warm and cozy, and my whole body relaxed. I'm full. I patted my stomach and closed my eyes contentedly. Okay. Shen Siqian glanced at my full bag, tapped the blanket around me again, and then naturally scooped up some congee to eat himself. Shen Siqian? You? My eyes widened in surprise. This was the congee I had left, and he was using the spoon I had just used. What's wrong? Shen Siqian looked at me, his lips slightly pressed together. His clear, dark eyes were filled with a hint of sadness, and his eyelashes lowered meekly. Like a child who had done something wrong, he spoke in a subdued tone. I haven't eaten yet either. Remembering how he had been running around all afternoon taking care of me without having time to eat himself, my heart filled with guilt. No, it's fine. Keep eating. Shen Siqian gave a faint smile and continued eating the congee quietly. Night deepened. The last bag of medicine slowly emptied, and Shen Siqian called a nurse to remove my fall. The nurse was a woman in her 20s with fair, delicate skin, a round face, and large, bright eyes. She looked particularly cheerful. She removed the fall bag, skillfully pulled out the needle, and placed a bandage over the spot. After finishing, she glanced at Shen Siqian, then at me, and teased. Dr. Shen is so good to his girlfriend, staying with her all afternoon. No, I'm not his girlfriend. I twitched my lips, waved my hands, and hurriedly explained. Shen Siqian, however, didn't deny it. He simply smiled politely at the nurse. Seeing this, the nurse flashed a meaningful look, gave an understanding smile, playfully winked at me, and left with her tray. It seemed like the nurse had misunderstood something. I felt awkward for a moment. Let's go. Shen Siqian took off his white coat, revealing his well-defined arms. He lowered his head, his deep eyes meeting mine. Should I take you home? I shook my head. I couldn't trouble him any further. No need, I drove here. Shen Siqian nodded thoughtfully, and what he said next almost made me trip over my own feet. Then, could you take me home? My jaw dropped. For a moment, I doubted my ears. What did you say? I stared at him in disbelief, meeting his dark, ink-like eyes. He looked serious, as if he wasn't joking. I'm a bit tired today. Driving wouldn't be safe. I was momentarily speechless. When it came to safety, it was hard to refuse such a reason. Besides, if it weren't for him today, navigating the hospital alone would have been so much more complicated. Okay. I nodded and pulled my car keys from my bag. Where do you live? Shen Siqian's lips curled upward. His features were striking, and when he smiled, his eyes softened, making his profile even more handsome and captivating. Junyu Hayating. I was taken aback. His neighborhood was actually near mine. We live pretty close, I remarked. What a coincidence. Yes. He looked down at me, his eyes shimmering with faint light, then raised his head and murmured softly. Does this count as fate? The night was thick, with a few scattered stars dotting the sky. I drove while Shen Siqian sat in the passenger seat. We maintained a tacit silence the entire way. While waiting at a red light, Shen Siqian suddenly spoke. Lin Yichan. I turned to look at him. The dim, flickering streetlights cast shadows on his face, making his expression hard to read. Let's add each other on WeChat again. The air fell silent again. I watched the red light countdown, my chest rising and falling slightly. After a moment, I found my voice. Okay. I parked a car at the entrance of Shen Siqian's neighborhood. He pulled out his phone, his tone gentle. What's your number? 158. I actually know it. Shen Siqian shook his head, interrupting me with a smile, his eyes twinkling with playful triumph. Just teasing you. Just remember to accept the friend request. I was momentarily speechless. When did Shen Siqian become so childish? I nodded helplessly and urged him to get out. You should go in now. He smiled gently, didn't linger, and stepped out of the car smoothly. Goodbye. Shen Siqian stood outside the car and waved, a faint smile on his face. I waved back blankly, forgetting that with the glass between us, he couldn't see my response. Staring at the empty, quiet street ahead, I zoned out, momentarily forgetting to drive back to my own neighborhood. Suddenly, someone tapped on the car window twice. Snapping back to reality, I saw Shen Siqian's face through the glass. He pointed downward with his index finger, signaling me to roll down the window. I pressed the button, and he leaned in. A breeze happened to sweep by, tousling his hair slightly. I caught a faint whiff of fresh grass and trees from the roadside. Shen Siqian looked at me earnestly. "Lin Yuchen, don't forget to take your medicine." He tilted his chin slightly. Following his gesture, I turned and saw the medicine on the seat. "Okay," I replied softly, a strange feeling stirring in my heart. Back home, as soon as I pulled out my phone, a friend request notification popped up on the screen. Seeing the note, Shen Siqian, I tapped accept, then clicked on his profile picture. His profile picture was simple, a white background with a cartoon brown bear wearing a pink knitted hat. The bear held a snowball and snowflakes dotted its nose, making it look adorably cute and chubby. Is this the sentiment of a tough guy? Even though Shen Siqian's temperament was far from tough guy, I couldn't help but laugh. "Thanks for today." I sent him the message, put down my phone, and went to wash up. After showering and changing into my pajamas, I lay down on the bed and opened WeChat again. There were several unread messages waiting. One was from Dao Yingying. She had shared an article with me. Shocking. What happens when women stay single too long? My temple throbbed. I didn't click on it, and instead sent back a sticker of a sweating, speechless puppy. After replying to a few work-related messages, I opened the chat with Shen Siqian. His reply was from half an hour ago. He had responded almost instantly to my message. "No problem, don't mention it. Remember to take your medicine." His reminder made me realize I hadn't taken my medicine yet. I quickly got out of bed. Walking to the living room, I opened the bag on the table. Inside were several boxes of medicine. I picked up one box. A sticky note was attached, clearly written in bold, forceful handwriting. 3 times a day, 1 pill each time. Lifting the sticky note, I saw a few scribbled and concise words on the box. 1 day times 3, 1 time times 1. I picked up the other boxes and found that, besides the handwriting on the boxes, each had an additional white sticky note with more detailed instructions repeating the dosage. Apart from those, there was also a brightly colored sticky note with larger handwriting. "Do not take on an empty stomach. Take with warm water." If someone else prescribed the medicine, were these sticky notes written by Shen Siqian? I popped a few pills into my mouth, lost in thought. Returning to my room, I picked up my phone and replied to Shen Siqian. "Yeah, already took them." The status showed typing on his end, and he soon replied, "Good. Rest early." I didn't reply further. Instead, I clicked into his moments. His latest post was from half a month ago, a picture shared by Shen Siqian. The photo was taken by the river at night. The water and sky were both a deep ink blue, with only a lone moon hanging high in the sky. In the distance, the white lights of buildings reflected on the river's surface, creating a scene of tranquility and loneliness. His caption read, "When did the river moon first shine upon people?" Scrolling down, I saw another picture. Shen Siqian had posted a street scene. One side of the street had black railings and the roadside trees were lush and green. It seemed to have just rained, as the asphalt road glistened with moisture. The next post was from a few months ago, just a picture of a strawberry cake. The strawberries were coated in crystal sugar, nestled in fluffy cream. The cake was exquisitely decorated and looked incredibly tempting. As I scrolled, drowsiness began to wash over me. I rubbed my eyes, turned off my phone, and drifted into a heavy, dreamless sleep. In my dream, I went back to the winter of my freshman year. That year, due to our different academic scores, Shen Siqian and I applied to different universities, and we began a long-distance relationship. At first, we video called every day. Later, because our schedules didn't align, it gradually became once a week, and eventually, we only kept in touch through messages. As finals week approached, both of us grew busy preparing for exams, especially Shen Siqian, who even took on a part-time job tutoring a guy in advanced mathematics. I was really puzzled back then. "You're already so busy lately. Why take on a part-time job? Isn't your family's financial situation pretty good?" Shen Siqian explained, "There are some things I want to do, And I feel like using money I earned myself would be more meaningful. Besides, Shen Siqian added, the pay he's offering is quite generous. I thought that made sense, so I didn't press further. Sometime later, Shen Siqian told me that the guy he was tutoring thought he was really good at teaching and wanted him to tutor his younger sister as well. They're offering double the pay. Listening to his explanation, I felt uneasy but didn't stop him. Well, be careful. Don't get charmed by some girl out there. I'm already with you. How could I have eyes for anyone else? Shen Siqian always had a way with words, and the flicker of discontent in my heart was instantly extinguished. In the following period, Shen Siqian messaged me less and less frequently, from dozens of messages a day to just over 10. Whenever I asked him what he was doing, he'd reply much later, always with messages like, studying or at my part-time job. Seeing the couples around me, glued to each other every day, going to and from classes together, and thinking about how Shen Siqian and I were communicating less and less, I felt a pang of bitterness. I often felt so sad I wanted to cry. One weekend, I received a friend request. Seeing the unfamiliar name, Chen Siqian, I frowned but still accepted it. As soon as I accepted, the other person bombarded me with messages. You're Shen Siqian's girlfriend, right? I'm the girl he's tutoring. Chances are, Shen Siqian hasn't replied to you. He's busy grading my test papers. Since you two barely talk, why stay together? He spends more time with me now than with you. You're such a pitiful girlfriend. After that, she sent a photo. In it, Shen Siqian was lowering his head, grading assignments seriously, with sunlight casting a soft outline around him. Looking at the face I'd been longing for day and night, my heart ached dully. It felt like the air in my chest was slowly being sucked away, making it hard to breathe. How long had it been since I last saw him? I zoomed in on the photo, my fingers tracing the outline of his face. How ironic I could only see my boyfriend when someone else was taunting me. Biting my lip, my entire body trembling with anger, tears instantly streaming down my face, I struggled to type a single sentence, making several mistakes. Our relationship isn't any of your business. If you want to bark like a dog, do it somewhere else. I hit send and immediately blocked her without hesitation. Then, I opened my chat with Shen Siqian. The screen was filled with green messages from me sharing little things about my day, like how a teacher slipped up in class and it was hilarious, or how I saw an adorable puppy on the road, or how the cafeteria food was too salty today. He hadn't replied to any of them. Finally, I asked him, "What are you doing?" Only then did he reply, "Getting ready for my part-time job." I sent him a few more messages after that. And as expected, he didn't reply. Chen Xiaoyuan's words echoed in my mind like a curse. I smiled bitterly to myself. Even though I knew he wouldn't reply, I couldn't help but send another message, punishing myself. "Shen Siqian, can't you talk to me more? How busy are you? Too busy to reply to your girlfriend." I scrolled up again, my eyes skimming over the sea of green messages, each one stinging painfully. In contrast, the white messages from him were few and far between. All these facts seemed to confirm what Chen Xiaoyuan had said. My face burned with shame. It felt like someone was choking me, a tightening pain spreading through my throat. I struggled to draw breath into my lungs, letting out a choked sob. My vision blurred again, and a throbbing dizziness washed over me. Wiping my tear-streaked cheeks, I sent Shen Siqian one last message. "Shen Siqian, let's break up." Those words seemed to drain all the strength from my body. My legs gave way, and my head hit the desk with a dull thud. The sharp pain brought me back to my senses slightly. I turned my head, fragmented memories flashing through my mind. I remembered a stormy night when I was stuck at the library without an umbrella. I watched helplessly as other girls were picked up by their boyfriends, while I dashed into the pouring rain, soaked from head to toe. I remembered walking a long distance under the scorching sun to buy a cake I'd been craving, only to find the shop closed when I finally arrived. I remembered dragging my injured foot up the stairs, clinging to the railing as crowds rushed past me, feeling helpless and lost. "So, you were never there when I needed you." I let out a low, hollow laugh, clutching the fabric over my chest as tears streamed into my ears. A cold breeze seeped through my collar. I touched my back, my clothes were damp with sweat without me even realizing it. Numbly, I stared out the window, watching the sky shift from white to yellow to red. By the time I snapped out of it, I was met with a silent, dark expanse. Slowly, I turned my head and saw my phone screen glowing stubbornly. I picked it up and the caller ID Shen Siqian sent a jolt through me. I pressed the answer button, and Shen Siqian's frantic breathing filled my ears. Lin Yu-chan, I'm on my way to your campus. Can you come down? I can explain. He was probably running, I could hear his heavy footsteps. Okay. The moment I spoke, I realized how hoarse my voice was, and my throat ached faintly. As soon as I stood up, a wave of dizziness hit me. Leaning on the desk, I steadied myself for a moment before slowly making my way out into the dark. When I reached the campus gate, I saw Shen Siqian. He was looking around anxiously, holding a box in his hand. The moment he saw me, he rushed over. Why are your eyes so swollen? He frowned, a pained expression on his face as he reached out to touch my cheek. I turned my face away slightly, avoiding his touch. Shen Siqian's hand froze mid-air, trembling slightly. He looked down helplessly, his eyes slowly turning red. I've actually been preparing your birthday gift lately. I let out a bitter laugh and looked up at him. Then where is it? Sweat beaded on his forehead, his chest heaving, his voice growing hoarse. The gift. I left it on the train just now. Shen Siqian then raised the box in his left hand, a transparent cake box. The cake inside looked like it had been crushed, the cream smeared against the walls of the box, with bits of crushed fruit piled in the corner. I made this cake for you, but I was in such a hurry earlier that I dropped it. It's pointless, Shen Siqian. I cut him off coldly, trying to ignore the tightening in my chest as cold sweat coated my palms. You can't give me what I want. Being with you feels like living as a widow. Holding back tears, I forced myself to meet his gaze. You talk to that girl more than you talk to me, don't you? I'm supposed to be your girlfriend. Yet, I'm being mocked by an outsider for how pitiful I am. Our lives are heading in completely different directions. Even if we don't break up now, we'll separate for other reasons eventually. I sniffled, my cheeks stinging from the cold wind, my heart aching as if pricked by needles. So, this is what it feels like to admit there's no future for us. Another gust of cold wind swept by, biting and icy. Shen Siqian's lips were pale, his eyes bloodshot. He opened his mouth to speak, but only managed a raspy, breathy sound. There's no point wasting each other's time. You're doing just fine without me, aren't you? As I said this, tears finally spilled over. All the pent-up sorrow poured out at once. That's not true, Lin Yu-chan. Shen Siqian's hand shot out to grab my arm, but as if afraid of hurting me, he let go helplessly, clenching his fist tightly at his side. You have to believe me. You mean so much to me. But those words felt hollow and meaningless in that moment. I smiled bitterly. Feelings can fade with time. Today, there's a Chen Zhaoyan. Tomorrow, there could be a Li Zhaoyan or a Zhang Zhaoyan. I couldn't expect him to rush to my side every time I felt hurt. Rather than letting conflicts pile up until we grew to resent each other, it was better to cut our losses now. There's nothing more to say. I turned away without another glance at him and walked alone into the pitch-black night. Don't contact me again. In the morning, I was woken by the sound of my alarm. Sitting up, I looked around the bright, empty room and took a moment to remember where I was. Probably spending too much time with Shen Siqian yesterday triggered that dream. I shook my head and smiled in relief. Thankfully, all of that was in the past. I picked up my phone and opened WeChat. The long-dormant high school class group suddenly had dozens of unread messages. Scrolling up, I saw a message from the class monitor at the top. Everyone, our homeroom teacher wants to see us. Let's organize a class reunion. Below were countless replies from old classmates. Haven't seen everyone in so long. Our teacher's birthday is coming up too. We can celebrate it in advance. Our homeroom teacher was in his 40s, a fun and kind-hearted man who cared deeply about his students, earning him much admiration and respect. Thinking of his gentle face, I added my name to the list. The reunion was scheduled for the following weekend. That morning, while I was still on my way, I got a call from Dao Yingying. She asked, "Hey, are you almost here?" I sighed, looking at the increasingly congested road ahead. Traffic's pretty bad. I might be a little late. She reassured me over the phone, her playful tone putting me at ease. No worries. Take your time. I saved a prime seat for you. When I finally arrived and hurried into the private room, almost everyone was already there. I scanned the room and saw Dao Yingying waving at me. After greeting everyone, I sat down next to her. I glanced at the empty seat beside me. A men's backpack was resting on the chair. Casually, I asked, "Who's sitting next to me?" Dao Yingying gave me a knowing look, grinning from ear to ear. "You'll find out soon." Seeing her smug expression, a sense of foreboding washed over me. When I saw that familiar, tall figure approaching me slowly, everything clicked. Shen Siqian pulled out the chair and sat down, turning to me with a bright, gentle smile. "Lin Yichan, we meet again." I forced a dry laugh. "Yeah, what a coincidence." Then, leaning closer to Dao Yingying, I whispered through gritted teeth, "Is this the prime seat you saved for me?" Dao Yingying nodded, unfazed. "The seat my dear friend saved for you, isn't that a prime seat?" Damn it, I should have known better than to trust her. As everyone gradually arrived, our homeroom teacher looked at us with a warm smile. "Haven't seen you all in years. You've all grown up so well." His words lightened the mood. The class monitor stood up, raising his glass, and said cheerfully, "Since we're all here, and our teacher's birthday is in a few days, let's all raise a toast to him." Everyone around stood up with their glasses. I reached for the wine bottle in front of me to pour myself a drink. But just as my fingers touched it, a hand with distinct knuckles pulled it away. I looked up, puzzled, and met Shen Siqian's serious gaze. "You just recovered from an illness. Don't drink." His tone was calm, as if advising any ordinary patient. Then, he picked up a bottle of grape juice and naturally poured it into my glass. He held the bottle with one hand. His arm slightly tensed, revealing smooth muscle lines. Our teacher noticed this and smiled. Siqian is still as thoughtful as ever. After the toast, the conversation naturally shifted to Shen Siqian. Our teacher looked at his former star student and asked curiously, "Siqian, I heard you became a gynecologist. What made you choose that field?" As soon as he asked, everyone's attention turned to Shen Siqian, waiting quietly for his response. Shen Siqian was silent for a moment before speaking softly, a hint of regret in his voice. "An elderly relative in my family had a gynecological condition that wasn't detected early enough. Even after treatment, she suffered severe complications. I've always felt regret about it and wanted to contribute to this field." After he finished, the room fell even quieter, the atmosphere growing somewhat solemn. Our teacher nodded thoughtfully. "Life is unpredictable. I believe you've chosen the right path." Dao Yingying leaned close to me and whispered, "During winter break of our freshman year, I heard his grandmother fell ill. Is that what he's talking about?" She paused before adding, "You had just broken up with him then, and you seemed so down all the time, so I didn't dare bring it up." After that, everything around me seemed to fade into a blur. My mind went blank. My thoughts dragged back to that winter. I remembered Shen Siqian standing in the cold wind, holding a crushed cake, looking lost and helpless, shivering as the wind whipped around him, his eyes red like an abandoned puppy. After that day, I came down with a high fever. Even after recovering, I was quiet and withdrawn for a long time, often unable to sleep at night, crying silently under the covers. That entire winter break, I locked myself in my room, barely stepping outside. And what about Shen Siqian? How did he get through that time? I remembered him telling me that aside from his parents, his grandmother was the most important person to him. He said when he was little and his parents were busy, his grandmother took care of him. A few times when he misbehaved and his father was about to scold him, his grandmother shielded him in her arms. When he was upset, she'd make funny faces to cheer him up. Such a wonderful grandmother, so important to him, and she fell seriously ill. How heartbroken Shen Siqian must have been. I didn't dare think further. It felt like my heart was being torn apart, waves of pain washing over me. Shen Siqian seemed to notice my distress. He leaned closer, his voice tinged with concern. "What's wrong, Lin Yichan?" I didn't answer. Instead, I abruptly stood up and hurried out of the room. Under everyone's surprised stares, I left the private room, my pace quickening until I was almost running. "Lin Yichan." I heard Shen Siqian's frantic voice behind me. The next moment, someone grabbed my arm and I stopped, breathing heavily. Shen Siqian turned me around to face him, his eyes deep and unreadable like still water. Why did you run? I. The corridor lights cast a glow on him. He lowered his head, leaning closer, his clean, cool scent enveloping me. Taking a deep breath, I looked away at the floor and whispered, I'm sorry, Shen Siqian. Sorry for not being brave and resolute enough back then. His grip on my shoulders tightened suddenly. I could feel his body trembling slightly. Lin Yishan, I don't need apologies. He cupped my chin, turning my face to meet his gaze again. Shen Siqian stared at me intently, a flicker of light in his eyes. He curved his lips into a coaxing smile. If you really want to apologize, give me a chance to pursue you. My heart pounded wildly, a rush of heat flooding my head. If you don't say anything, I'll take it as a yes. He chuckled softly, his smile spreading, his eyes shining like a galaxy of stars. Then, Lin Yishan, get ready. Ready to be my girlfriend. Another weekend arrived. I went to the swimming pool, changed into my swimsuit, and stood by the edge stretching. Suddenly, someone tapped my shoulder. I turned around and saw a familiar handsome face. Good afternoon. Shen Siqian curved his eyes into a harmless smile. What are you doing here? How do I run into him everywhere? The corner of my mouth twitched slightly as I stared at Shen Siqian in shock. He was only wearing swim trunks, his waist and abdomen lean, with the faint outline of an Adonis belt. Above that were firm, well-defined abs and pectoral muscles. Such a tantalizing scene. I nervously averted my eyes, hearing Shen Siqian's amused voice. If I'm pursuing you, of course I need to see you more often. I pressed my lips together, suddenly remembering something, and narrowed my eyes at him. Did Dao Yingying send you? Shen Siqian raised an eyebrow, avoiding my gaze, and ran his slender fingers through his hair. If you don't start swimming soon, it'll be dark. With that, he began stretching on his own, and before I could get into the water, dove in first. A moment later, I stared at the expanse of pale skin constantly appearing in front of me, and finally couldn't take it anymore. Shen Siqian. He stopped moving, stood up from the water with a splash, droplets streaming down the lines of his back. He turned around, wet hair clinging to his forehead, his eyes glistening. What's wrong? There are so many lanes. Do you really have to squeeze into mine? Shen Siqian didn't answer, slowly swimming closer to me. Ripples spread across the pool. I grew flustered, trying to back away, but suddenly my foot slipped, and I fell straight into the water. Before my eyes were the blue-green pool water and Shen Siqian's pale, slender legs. Holding my breath, I kicked my legs, trying to swim backward, but my foot brushed against something slippery and firm. The next second, an arm wrapped around my back, pulling me to the surface. I blinked, exhaling deeply, took off my goggles and glared at him. You! Before I could finish, the hand on my back tightened, pulling me against his chest. My arm pressed tightly against his torso. The warmth of his body spread through me like an electric current. My skin grew warm, and where we touched, water droplets trickled down. Heat surged around us. I struggled to break free from his embrace, but he suddenly pressed my head against his shoulder. Don't move. His chest vibrated slightly, his deep voice lingering in my ear. My cheek rested against his damp, warm shoulder. I looked up and saw his Adam's apple bobbing slightly. I swallowed hard, instinctively closing my eyes. Better not look. Suddenly, I felt a warm touch on my lips. Startled, I opened my eyes and met Shen Siqian's dark gaze, so deep it felt like it could steal one's soul. While I was still stunned, Shen Siqian's tongue slipped past my teeth, teasing the roof of my mouth. A tingling sensation spread through my lips. My body grew weak, and I clung helplessly to his shoulders. He cut the back of my neck, slowly devouring the air from my mouth. It wasn't until I was nearly breathless that Shen Siqian finally released me. My face was burning and my voice trembled with urgency. Shen Siqian? His eyes gleamed with moisture, like ripples on a lake. He licked his crimson lips and gently curved them into a smile. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. The next day, I absent-mindedly ate breakfast. Every time I thought about yesterday's kiss, my face flushed with heat. Shen Siqian always uses his looks to his advantage. The doorbell rang, interrupting my wandering thoughts. I walked to the door and opened it to find a bouquet of bright yellow sunflowers. Hello, Miss Lin. These flowers are from Mr. Shen. A masked man handed me the bouquet. I took the flowers, thanked him, closed the door, and walked inside. Looking down at the bouquet in my arms, the sunflowers clustered together, their yellow petals stretching out fully, their vibrant color lifting my spirits. Tucked among the plump, delicate flowers was a card. I picked it up and read, "Shall I compare thee to a summer's day?" I ran my fingers over the card, then glanced at the sunflowers, remembering what Shen Siqian once said. "Lin Yuchan, you're like a sunflower, bright, dazzling, and always reaching upward." My phone lit up with a message from Shen Siqian. "Do you like the flowers? I also ordered you a cake." A moment later, the doorbell rang again. I retrieved the cake and placed it on the table. It was a yellow peach cake. The peaches were sliced, slightly glistening, arranged neatly on the cake like blooming flowers. Looking at the cake, I frowned slightly, suddenly remembering something. I opened Shen Siqian's social media feed. Scrolling down, I found the post with only a picture of a strawberry cake. Below it was a comment from him. "Even though I can't see you, happy birthday." Who was he wishing a happy birthday? I glanced at the posting date. March 10th, my birthday. My eyelashes fluttered. I swiped right, carefully examining the previous photo of a street. Railings, green trees, asphalt road. I zoomed in and noticed, in the corner of the picture, a few shops, one with a faint sign that read, "Yun's Wanton." Searching my memory, I suddenly recalled that outside my university's south gate, there was a Yun's Wanton. So this photo was taken near my university. I felt like an explorer in the fog, slowly clearing the haze, following faint glimmers of light to find the way out. Pressing my lips together tightly, I swiped to the picture of the riverside. When did the moon over the river first shine upon people? Yuchen, Yuchen. May we live long and share the beauty of the moon across thousands of miles. A vague voice echoed from my memory. My breath caught, and I nervously looked at the posting date. June 20th, the day we officially became a couple. He had always remembered. Even when I wasn't by his side, he had found another way to let me be a part of his life. On the table, the sunflowers and the cake complemented each other in color, looking vibrant and full of life. Staring at this bright yellow, my heart felt like it was soaking in warm water, achy yet warm. A few nights later, I'd just gotten home from work when my phone rang. It was an unknown number, but I answered it anyway. "Baby, where are you?" Who the hell was this? "Sorry, I think you have the wrong number." The sickly sweet pet name made my skin crawl. I hung up without a second thought. But it wasn't long before the same number called again. "Baby, why did you hang up on me?" The person on the other end sniffled, their voice sounding oddly wronged. I frowned. "Shen Siqian?" I asked tentatively. "It's me." The man let out a silly chuckle, his voice brimming with childlike excitement. "Did you hit your head or something?" I frowned in confusion. Shen Siqian's tone was definitely off. There was a commotion on the line, and then someone else picked up his phone. "Hello, are you Lin Yuchan? Siqian came out with us tonight, and he's pretty drunk. He's been crying and begging for you to come get him." "Fine." I raised an eyebrow slightly. The KTV wasn't far from my place, so I skipped grabbing my car keys and headed over on foot, following the GPS. As soon as I reached the KTV entrance, a tall, tanned man spotted me. His eyes lit up when he saw me. "Sister-in-law, you're finally here." "I'm Chun Ming," he said, flashing me a warm, genuine smile. "We've all been driven crazy by Siqian." He led me toward the private room, chattering animatedly as we walked. "You wouldn't believe how clingy he gets when he's drunk. He's been hanging onto my arm, yelling your name this whole time." Chen Ming grimaced, crossing his arms and shivering dramatically, as if he'd been thoroughly creeped out. The moment we pushed open the private room door, I spotted Shen Siqian slouched in the corner, looking listless and dejected. Chen Ming walked over and patted him on the shoulder. "Wake up. Your baby's here to take you home." At the sound of that, Shen Siqian's head shot up. His eyes were bright and shiny, like a puppy's. He pouted, slowly shuffling over to me before leaning down and wrapping his arms around me tightly. "Baby, why did you take so long?" He nuzzled his head into the crook of my neck, his warm breath fanning my shoulder and sending a shiver of ticklishness down my spine. I couldn't help but shrink away, pushing his head back. "How much did you drink?" His cheeks were flushed, his eyes clouded with drunkenness. He pouted, looking utterly wronged. I kept drinking because you didn't come. Then Shen Siqian broke into a brilliant smile, nuzzling his cheek against my palm. He closed his eyes contentedly. Baby, I missed you so much. His friends let out teasing, suggestive laughs. My ears burned with embarrassment. I patted his back lightly. Stop calling me that. Who's your baby? Shen Siqian suddenly pulled back, cupping my face in both hands. His wet, glistening eyes locked onto mine with childish sincerity. You are Yu-chan. You're my baby. His straightforward words left me momentarily stunned. I averted my gaze, softening my tone. Didn't you want to go home? Let me take you back, okay? Shen Siqian tilted his head, as if processing my words. After a moment, he took my hand eagerly, his eyes sparkling with excitement. Okay, I'll go home with you. He paused, then frowned seriously, adding, I only want to go home with you. Amused by his stubbornness, I reached up to ruffle his hair. All right, only with me. I turned to smile and say goodbye to Shen Siqian's friends. Chun Ming boomed with laughter, his face crinkling with amusement. Sister-in-law, Siqian's all yours now. I nodded, taking Shen Siqian's hand and leading him outside. He was surprisingly well-behaved the entire way, holding my hand and walking quietly beside me, occasionally glancing around at our surroundings. We passed an ice cream shop, and Shen Siqian suddenly stopped in his tracks. I tried to pull him along, but he wouldn't budge. He tugged on my hand, pointing at the giant ice cream sign in the shop window. He swallowed hard, his eyes fixed on me intently. I want ice cream, I sighed, leading him toward the shop. What flavor do you want? Shen Siqian stroked his chin, studying the menu carefully. After a moment, he said without hesitation, Strawberry. I paid for the ice cream and handed it to him. He took a bite from my hand, then suddenly frowned and turned his face away in disgust. This is bad. I want chocolate. I clenched my fists, closing my eyes to calm myself. Stay calm, Lin Yu-chan. Don't argue with a drunk person. I opened my eyes again, forcing a smile at the cashier. Hi, could I get a chocolate one as well? The cashier smiled indulgently and quickly handed me the new ice cream. I forced a smile, passing it to Shen Siqian, my voice laced with a subtle warning. This is the last one. Shen Siqian nodded eagerly, taking the ice cream and eating it quietly. After a few bites, he looked up at me, holding the ice cream out to me. Baby, you try it too. He smiled, his eyes wide and watery, looking at me with eager anticipation. His innocent expression melted my heart. I didn't refuse, leaning in to take a bite. Is it good? Is it good? Shen Siqian asked eagerly, like a child waiting for praise. It's delicious. I smiled gently at him. His cheeks flushed bright red, and he ducked his head to continue eating his ice cream. After a series of twists and turns, we finally reached Shen Siqian's doorstep. I nudged him. Come on, use your fingerprint to unlock the door. He immediately hid his hand behind his back, tilting his chin up and looking at the ceiling with a haughty expression. No. I want you to enter the passcode. I felt my patience wearing thin. I kept my tone even, coaxing him gently. All right. What's the passcode then? Shen Siqian suddenly leaned in close, a mischievous smile playing on his lips. He lowered his voice. The passcode is your birthday. I froze, a strange flutter stirring in my chest. After a moment, I looked at him in confusion. That's not working. He grinned at me, his eyes twinkling with amusement. Just kidding. The passcode is my birthday. I clicked my tongue in annoyance, pulling him inside. As soon as the door closed behind us, Shen Siqian wrapped his arms around me from behind. He nuzzled his chin against the crook of my neck, his voice low in my ear. Welcome home, baby. The scent of him overwhelmed my senses, and my heart skipped a beat. I awkwardly tried to push his hands away, but he only held me tighter. Baby, you smell so good. Shen Siqian took a deep breath of my hair, then turned his face to press a wet kiss to my cheek. A jolt of electricity shot through my body, and I couldn't help but shrink away. His lips moved to my neck, and he darted out his tongue, gently licking my skin. The warm, wet sensation made me gasp. I clung tightly to his arms. Shen Siqian, are you a dog or something? Shen Siqian ignored me, burying his face in my shoulder. His lips pressed against my skin, and he sucked gently. A shiver ran through me, my legs growing weak. I would have collapsed if he hadn't been holding me up. He wrapped his arms around me, leading me toward the bedroom. He gently tossed me onto the bed. I tried to sit up, but Shen Siqian immediately leaned over me. His hands braced on either side of my head, pinning me down. Shen Siqian, what are you doing? Panicked, I struggled to get up, but he pressed me back onto the bed. He leaned in close, his nose brushing mine. His long eyelashes fluttered slightly, and his breath, heavy with the scent of alcohol, fanned my face. Our breaths mingled and my cheeks burned with heat. Shen Siqian stared into my eyes, his gaze growing darker and more intense. He lowered his head, planting a trail of soft, delicate kisses across my face. My breath hitched nervously. Suddenly his lips captured mine. He kissed me gently at first, then deepened the kiss, his tongue exploring my mouth. The taste of alcohol and ice cream filled my senses. My mind went blank, waves of heat rushing to my face. Shen Siqian let out a low, needy groan in my ear. He suddenly pulled back, stripping off his short-sleeve shirt to reveal his toned, muscular upper body. He reached for his belt, the sound of the buckle clicking open echoing in the room. His pants slid down his hips slowly. Why you? I was so embarrassed that I squeezed my eyes shut, unable to look at him. Shen Siqian leaned over me again, his fingers finding the zipper at the back of my dress. A rush of cool air hit my chest as the zipper slid down. His kisses seared my skin, leaving a trail of fire in their wake. He lifted my body, pressing me closer to him. I gradually stopped resisting, wrapping my arms around his neck as we both surrendered to the moment. My waist ached slightly. I rolled over sleepily, my hand brushing against something warm and firm. Confused, I opened my eyes, coming face to face with Shen Siqian's handsome, gentle features. Good morning. Shen Siqian propped his head up on one hand, smiling at me with obvious contentment. The blanket slipped down his body, revealing his smooth, muscular skin. Memories of the previous night came flooding back, blurry, intimate images that made my face burn. I quickly squeezed my eyes shut, rolling over to face away from him. I can't believe I slept with Shen Siqian last night. Ah. I let out a silent scream into the pillow, yanking the blanket over my head. I'd been completely bewitched by him. So much for keeping my wits about me. This was a disaster. How was I ever going to face him again? I heard a low chuckle from behind me. Shen Siqian's voice was muffled by the blanket. Lin Yu-chan. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I muttered to myself, covering my ears. Suddenly the blanket was pulled off my head. I froze, my hand still clamped over my ears. Shen Siqian looked down at me, amused. I'm going to make breakfast. Why don't you take a shower first? I nodded quickly, waving him away. Yeah, go ahead. Shen Siqian laughed softly, his eyes never leaving mine. He leaned in close, pinching my cheek gently. Are you shy? No. Caught off guard by his question, my face burned even hotter. I glared at him, then quickly ducked my head. All right. Shen Siqian ruffled my hair, his voice soft and reassuring. Yi-chan's not shy at all. I'll go make breakfast. You go shower, okay? Oh, okay. I nodded, pulling the blanket tighter around myself. Only after Shen Siqian left the room did I sit up. A wave of soreness washed over my body, and I winced, rubbing my aching waist. I picked up the clothes beside the bed, raising my arm to put them on. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Shen Siqian standing in the doorway. I froze, quickly diving back under the covers. Don't be nervous. Shen Siqian smiled, his eyes sparkling with amusement. His voice was laced with laughter. There's nothing of yours I haven't seen already. He walked over to the wardrobe, pulling out a set of clothes and placing them next to me. You can wear my pajamas first. I'll have your dress cleaned. Shen Siqian picked up my dress, heading toward the door. There are new toothbrushes and cups in the bathroom. Help yourself. As soon as he left, I grabbed the clothes and hobbled to the bathroom, wincing at the soreness between my legs. After my shower, I stared at Shen Siqian's pajamas, feeling a sense of helplessness. His clothes were way too big for me. The shirt alone reached my thighs, and the pants were completely unwearable. But I didn't have any other options. After some hesitation, I put on just the shirt and slowly made my way out of the bathroom. When I emerged, Shen Siqian's eyes lingered on my legs for a moment before he quickly looked away. His voice was slightly hoarse when he spoke. Sorry, I forgot my pants wouldn't fit you. Let's eat breakfast first. I'll go buy you some new clothes later. I nodded, taking a bite of toast. My mouth was too full to speak. Shen Siqian suddenly looked up at me, his brows furrowed with concern. His voice was sincere. Did I hurt you last night? I choked on my toast, a piece of bread sticking in my throat. I couldn't swallow it or cough it up. I pounded my chest frantically, unable to stop hiccuping. Shen Siqian immediately stood up, rushing over to pat my back. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He picked up a glass of milk, trying to feed it to me, but I accidentally bumped his hand, and the entire glass of milk spilled all over my chest. I stared down in panic as the milk soaked through the thin fabric of Shen Siqian's shirt, clinging to my body and clearly outlining my figure. Shen Siqian froze, his grip on the empty glass tightening. I looked up to see his Adam's apple bob slightly. He stared down at me, his expression unreadable, his dark eyes intense and deep. I had a bad feeling about this. My hiccups got even worse. Shen Siqian turned and walked into the kitchen, pouring me a glass of water. He watched me drink it, not saying a word the entire time. After finishing the water, I finally started to feel better. I slumped back in my chair, letting out a long sigh of relief. Suddenly, I felt a strong arm wrap around my waist. Shen Siqian lifted me onto his lap. Before I could say anything, his lips crashed down onto mine. His tongue invaded my mouth, tangling with mine in a fiery kiss. My body trembled under his touch, my heart racing wildly. I heard the sound of the front door opening. Shen Siqian walked over to me, holding a shopping bag. Go change your clothes. I want to take you somewhere. I kicked my leg slightly, reluctant to move. I don't want to go. Shen Siqian knelt down in front of me, meeting my eyes. He smiled, his eyes crinkling with amusement. Shall I beg you? Despite his words, his tone held no trace of supplication. Instead, it was low and seductive, his voice rising slightly at the end. Against my better judgment, I nodded, taking the shopping bag and heading to the bedroom. I heard him chuckle softly behind me, and I quickened my pace, feeling a surge of frustration. Damn it! I'd let him get the better of me again. After changing clothes, I followed Shen Siqian downstairs and got into his car. My eyes immediately fell on a small teddy bear hanging from the rearview mirror. The bear was fluffy and cute, its little paws clasped in front of its chest. It swayed back and forth as the car moved, looking utterly adorable. I couldn't help but smile, reaching out to stroke its soft fur. This bear is so cute. It is, Shen Siqian agreed, smiling at me. Just like you. His compliment made my cheeks flush slightly. Shen Siqian was getting better and better at flirting with me. I didn't say anything more, turning to look out the window. The green scenery flashed by, and I started to feel drowsy, slowly closing my eyes. In my half-asleep state, I felt someone gently caressing my face. A familiar clean scent filled my nostrils. I opened my eyes sleepily to find Shen Siqian leaning close to me. Awake? Shen Siqian stopped stroking my face, cupping my cheek in his hand. We arrived a while ago. His palm was warm and dry. I instinctively nuzzled my face against it. I yawned, still feeling sleepy. Why didn't you wake me up earlier? Shen Siqian smiled suddenly. The afternoon sun shone down on him, gilding his hair with a golden glow. His voice was warm and deep, as if filtered through the sunlight. I couldn't bear to, he said, chuckling softly. You looked like a little bear when you were sleeping. He unclipped the teddy bear from the rearview mirror, holding it up next to my face. He studied us both carefully, then smiled again, his eyes crinkling with delight. You really do look alike. I guess I made the right choice buying it back then. Shen Siqian clipped the bear back into place, nodding in satisfaction. I was still feeling a little dazed when Shen Siqian got out of the car. He waved at me. Come on. I took a few steps toward him, then suddenly stopped, looking around in surprise. This is your university, Shen Siqian said, standing in the shade of a tree. His eyes were lowered and a faint smile played on his lips. He looked up at me again, his eyes sparkling with emotion. I've always wanted to bring you back here. He stared through the school gate at the campus beyond. After a long silence, he spoke again, his voice filled with nostalgia and regret. This is where my regret began. A single iron gate separated the inside of the school from the outside world. Shen Siqian reached out, his fingers slipping through the gaps in the fence. His fingers curled slightly, as if trying to grasp something intangible. I watched as the sunlight shifted, a single beam filtering through the leaves and landing perfectly in his palm. He closed his hand, clutching the light tightly. Time seemed to stand still. It was as if the years of longing and regret had surged forward and then settled, finally converging into the beam of light in his hand, ethereal and bright, something you wanted to reach out and touch, yet hesitated to grasp. After a long while, he came back to his senses, looking at me again. Let's go. I want to take you somewhere else. I stood in front of the shop, looking up at the sign and reading the words slowly. Yoon's Wontons? I never would have guessed this was where he'd wanted to take me. Shen Siqian noticed my confusion, but he just smiled at me without explanation, walking straight into the shop. I scratched my head, following him inside. As soon as we entered, the landlady greeted us warmly. Well, if it isn't Zhao Shen, the usual wontons for you. Yes, thank you, Auntie Yun. Shen Siqian smiled politely at her, then turned to look at me, his eyes soft and tender. I'll also have a bowl of wontons, no chili, extra cilantro please. It was only then that the landlady noticed me. She wiped her hands on her apron, smiling so widely her eyes crinkled into slits. My, what a pretty young lady. Come, have a seat. After all these years, Zhao Shen has finally stopped coming here alone. She leaned against the table, sighing with emotion. After all these years, my heart skipped a beat. I looked at Shen Siqian questioningly. Do you come here often? He blinked, tilting his head slightly as if lost in thought. Not exactly often, but I've come a few times every year. I bit my lip, my throat feeling tight. Since when? Shen Siqian lowered his eyes, his smile tinged with sadness. Since my freshman year of college. After a moment of silence, he suddenly pointed behind me. I turned around and saw the school gate in the distance. Look, Shen Siqian said, a smile playing on his lips. From this spot you can see the school gate perfectly. He rested his chin in his hand, his dark eyes fixed on me intently. I'd sit here and watch the people coming and going, and I'd always find myself wondering, what was Lin Yu-chan doing right now? Was she eating on time? Was she studying hard? Did she ever? He paused, lowering his eyes and smiling gently. When he looked up again, his eyes were filled with a warmth that reminded me of spring. Ever think of me? My heart missed a beat, and I curled my fingers tightly, nervous. How could I not have thought of him? Shen Siqian and I had been so intertwined in the past that I often found myself getting lost in memories of him. Even when I was doing the most ordinary things, his face would pop into my mind unbidden. Our wontons were placed on the table. I pulled myself out of my thoughts, picking up my spoon and stirring the wontons in the bowl. Steam rose from the bowl, fogging up Shen Siqian's glasses. He took them off, picking up a wonton and blowing on it gently to cool it down. Perhaps it was the steam, but the corners of his eyes were slightly red, and his eyes looked unusually moist. He brought the spoon to his mouth, taking a small bite of the wonton. He chewed slowly and elegantly. I stared at him, lost in thought. My hand slipped involuntarily, and the spoon clattered into the soup. A large drop of hot soup splashed onto the back of my hand. I yelped in pain, pulling my hand back and reaching for a tissue. My face contorted in discomfort. Suddenly, a warm hand wrapped around mine. Shen Siqian frowned, pulling my hand toward him. He used a tissue to gently dab at the soup stain, absorbing the liquid carefully. He held my hand in his, examining the burn closely. He looked up at me, his brows furrowed with concern. Does it hurt? Before I could answer, Shen Siqian raised his voice, calling out to the landlady. Auntie Yun, do you have any burn ointment? Yes, I do. Auntie Yun walked over to a cabinet, rummaging around for a moment before pulling out a tube of ointment. I'm afraid I don't have any cotton swabs though. That's all right. Shen Siqian took the ointment from her, twisting open the cap. He squeezed out a small amount, gently applying it to the burn on my hand. A cool sensation spread across my skin. He lowered his head, blowing gently on the wound to soothe the pain. His hair was thick and slightly curly, looking incredibly soft. He looked just like a big, fluffy dog. So cuddly. Before I could stop myself, my free hand reached up toward his head. But Shen Siqian suddenly looked up, his forehead brushing against my fingertips. The soft, smooth sensation was gone in an instant. I froze, my hand hovering awkwardly above his nose. The air fell silent. I tried to pull my hand back in embarrassment, but his other hand wrapped around my wrist, stopping me. His hand moved upward, brushing against my palm before interlacing his fingers with mine. Shen Siqian leaned in close, his dark, moist eyes locking onto mine. He smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling with amusement. "Why are you pulling away?" Shen Siqian squeezed my hand gently, his fingers pressing between mine. He let out a low chuckle when he felt me stiffen. "Don't be nervous. Were you trying to touch me just now?" Shen Siqian tilted his chin down slightly, his eyes filled with playful mischief. Caught red-handed, my face burned with embarrassment. I glared at him, but my gaze softened almost immediately, and I found myself staring at his handsome cheeks. I felt a soft, warm sensation against my palm. Shen Siqian tilted his head, pressing his cheek against my hand. He let out a low chuckle, his warm breath fanning my skin. His eyes locked onto mine, and he spoke slowly, his voice filled with a quiet sincerity, as if he were making a vow. "Don't be shy. I'm all yours. You can touch me anywhere you want. I think you can let go now." I glanced at our intertwined hands, giving his hand a gentle shake. Shen Siqian had naturally taken my hand as soon as we stepped out of the shop, and he hadn't let go since. "Now that I've taken it," Shen Siqian said, a lazy smile playing on his lips, "why would I let it go so easily?" I brushed a strand of hair behind my ear, saying nothing as I let him lead me forward. After a while, I turned to look at him. "Where are you taking me?" "To meet my grandma. You're both the most important women in my life," Shen Siqian said, reaching up to ruffle my hair. He seemed to think of something, suddenly lowering his head and chuckling softly. "It's about time you two met." "Meeting the parents?" I felt a surge of nervousness, tightening my grip on his hand. "It's not a formal meeting," Shen Siqian said, stroking his chin thoughtfully. He lowered his head slightly, meeting my gaze. His voice was low and soft. "It's a gathering of the most lovely women in my life." Sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on his face. The interplay of light and shadow created a strange, captivating beauty. A sudden rush of courage surged through me. My heart raced wildly as the words spilled out of my mouth before I could stop them. "All right, I'll go with you." Shen Siqian's eyes lit up. He smiled and nodded, leading me toward where he'd parked the car. Once we were in the car, he leaned in close to me, his clean, fresh scent overwhelming my senses. "You didn't get much rest last night. Do you want to sleep for a while?" His words brought all those heated, intimate memories flooding back. I felt a wave of heat rush to my face. I turned my head away, closing my eyes. Shen Siqian adjusted my seat to a more comfortable position, saying nothing more as he drove quietly. I settled into the seat, quickly drifting off to sleep. When I started to wake up, I faintly heard someone speaking in a low voice. "Yes, I'll bring her over. We'll be there soon." I opened my eyes, golden sunlight pouring in through the car window and wrapping around me in a warm embrace. The place we were in was lush and green. I rubbed my eyes, asking, "Are we here already?" "We are," Shen Siqian nodded, parking the car in front of a small villa. He turned to look at me, his expression soft and tender. "Shall we go?" After getting out of the car, he took my hand again. The warm, familiar sensation spread from his palm to mine. I froze for a moment, then relaxed, letting him lead me forward. As we walked through the iron gate, we saw a slightly plump elderly woman standing at the door. When she spotted us, she straightened up immediately, hurrying over to greet us. Shen Siqian quickened his pace, rushing over to support her arm. He lowered his head, his voice warm and affectionate. "Grandma." "You rascal," she said, laughing heartily and patting his shoulder. "You finally brought her to see me." The old lady turned her gaze to me, smiling kindly. Her gentle eyes made me feel an immediate sense of warmth and familiarity. "Chen, you can just call me Grandma too, all right?" "Hello, Grandma." I smiled back at her. Looking at her face, which shared some features with Shen Siqian's, I couldn't help but compliment her. "Grandma, you're so beautiful. I'd be thrilled if I look half as good as you when I'm your age." Her face lit up with joy at my words. She pulled her arm free from Shen Siqian's grasp, walking over to me and linking her arm through mine warmly. "You sweet-talking girl. Come on in, let me cook you something to eat." Shen Siqian watched us, shaking his head with a helpless smile. "Grandma, it's only been a few minutes since you met her, and you're already playing favorites." The old lady tightened her grip on my arm, tilting her chin up with a playful huff. "Your company just isn't as pleasant as Yi Chan's." As they both clung to me, bathed in the warm sunlight, I felt a sudden, overwhelming sense of home. When we walked into the dining room, I froze when I saw the spread of food on the table. Every single dish was one of my favorites. I looked at Shen Siqian in surprise. He stood there, smiling gently at me. "I asked Grandma to make your favorite dishes specially." Grandma turned to go into the kitchen to serve the rice. "That's right, Yu-chan. Don't be shy, eat as much as you want." I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. My heart was filled with warmth. After we sat down, Shen Siqian picked up a plate and began peeling shrimp for Grandma and me. Soon, both our bowls were piled high with shrimp, but he hadn't touched his own food at all. Amused, I reached out to stop him. "Aren't you going to eat anything yourself?" Shen Siqian held up his hands, wiggling his wet fingers innocently. He looked at me with a playful glint in his eyes. "My hands are a bit full right now. Why don't you feed me instead?" I hesitated for a moment, then picked up a shrimp and brought it to his mouth. Shen Siqian ate it from my chopsticks, a bright smile spreading across his face. "It's delicious." He thought for a moment, then leaned in closer, his voice taking on a playful, coquettish tone. "I want more." I laughed, picking up another shrimp and feeding it to him. Grandma sat there, shaking her head and clicking her tongue. "You're a grown man, and you're not even the least bit ashamed of yourself." Shen Siqian leaned back in his chair, answering her with perfect confidence. "We call this mutual affection and consideration." He turned to me, winking playfully like a child. "Isn't that right, Yu-chan?" Determined not to play along with him, I cupped my hand to my ear, widening my eyes and feigning confusion. "Huh? What did you say?" "I can't hear you very well." I said, "Y-O-U-R-G-P-I-G." Shen Siqian spoke each word slowly, exaggerating his mouth movements for effect. I was left speechless, my mouth twitching slightly. Was this man ever going to grow up? I stared at his handsome face, speaking each word slowly and clearly. Y-O-U-T-K-I-G. After dinner, Shen Siqian tried to wash the dishes, but Grandma chased him out of the kitchen. "There's no time for dishes now. Take Yu-chan for a walk around the neighborhood first." Shen Siqian's hands were still wet. He grabbed a paper towel to dry them, looking up at me with a smile. "Your wish is my command." He walked over to the sofa, holding out his hand to me. His eyes sparkled with excitement. "Shall we go, Miss Lin?" I placed my hand in his, letting him pull me to my feet. As we walked toward the door, we heard Grandma calling after us. "Don't forget to wash those dishes when you get back." I couldn't help but laugh, patting Shen Siqian on the shoulder teasingly. "Looks like you've got quite the family status here." Shen Siqian raised an eyebrow. "In our family, the men always make concessions to the women." He smiled at me, his eyes never leaving mine. "Would you like to become a part of our family?" My breath hitched in my throat. I tried my best to ignore the strange fluttering in my chest, avoiding his question by looking straight ahead at the path before us. It was late afternoon, and the golden light of the setting sun bathed everything in a warm glow. The plants by the roadside were tinged with a beautiful, rich hue, and the air was filled with a faint, fresh scent of grass and trees. This was a small town, where children chased each other and laughed loudly. Their carefree giggles were contagious, making me smile involuntarily. An elderly woman was selling flowers by the side of the road. The flowers in front of her were a vibrant riot of colors, blending together to form a beautiful natural painting. I was immediately drawn to them. I stopped walking, squatting down to look at the flowers and pick out a few. When the old lady saw us, she smiled at Shen Siqian. "Young man, would you like to buy some flowers for the beautiful young lady beside you?" Shen Siqian squatted down too, picking out several flowers from the bunch and holding them out to me. "I would," he said. He looked at me, his eyes filled with warmth and affection, the colorful bouquet of flowers framing his face. For the most beloved young lady in my life. The setting sun cast a golden glow over him, and memories of summers long past came flooding back. In that moment I thought he was far more beautiful than any flower there. I held the flowers in one hand, and Shen Siqian's hand in the other, wandering aimlessly through the streets. We rounded a corner and I suddenly stopped in my tracks. Not far from us, there was a large yellow dog. Its tail was held high, and its small, bright eyes fixed on us. It immediately started barking loudly, looking quite fierce and intimidating. I had been afraid of dogs ever since I was a child. Its sudden bark made my legs go weak. I clung tightly to Shen Siqian's arm, my voice trembling with fear. I'm scared. Can we go another way?" Shen Siqian patted my back gently, his voice low and soothing. "Don't be afraid. Let's just walk back the way we came." I stole another glance at the dog, only to see it baring its teeth at us. I felt a surge of panic, cold sweat breaking out all over my body. I couldn't help but quicken my pace, clinging even tighter to Shen Siqian. My voice was thick with tears. "Hurry. Hurry." We had walked a short distance when we suddenly heard the sound of the dog barking loudly and rapidly behind us. Why did it sound like it was getting closer? I didn't dare to look back, but my mind conjured up an image of the dog running toward us at full speed. "Woof! Woof!" Ah! The dog barked again, and I let out a terrified scream. I grabbed Shen Siqian's hand, pulling him along as I ran as fast as I could. "Lin Yichen. Lin Yichen. Ah. Tears streamed down my face as I ran and screamed, completely ignoring Shen Siqian's calls. We ran for a while, and I suddenly felt the person I was pulling become heavier and heavier. I turned my head to look, only to find Shen Siqian standing there, holding my hand and not moving an inch. "Let go of me." I pulled back with all my strength, trying to free my hand from his grasp. My face turned bright red from the effort. He might not want to run for his life, but I certainly did. Shen Siqian tightened his grip on my wrist, pulling me into his arms. He cupped my face in his hands, bending down to look me in the eyes. "There's no dog chasing you," he said firmly. "Huh?" I stared at him blankly, tears still streaming down my face. Shen Siqian pulled out a tissue, gently wiping the tears from my face. He repeated himself patiently. "There's no dog chasing you." It took me a few seconds to process his words. The tight tension in my mind suddenly snapped. My legs gave way and I leaned against Shen Siqian's shoulder, gasping for breath. He stroked my back gently, helping me to catch my breath. "I've been trying to tell you that, but you were too busy screaming." I felt a wave of embarrassment wash over me. I buried my face in the crook of his neck, mortified. This was so humiliating. I'd been scared half to death by my own imagination. I closed my eyes, resting quietly against his shoulder. The familiar scent of his laundry detergent filled my nostrils. After a while, Shen Siqian stroked my head gently. "Shall we go now?" "Just a little longer. I can't walk anymore." That mad dash had left me completely exhausted, and my throat was parched and dry. Shen Siqian suddenly let go of me, turning around and squatting down in front of me. "Get on my back," he said, looking over his shoulder at me. His eyes reflected the beautiful colors of the setting sun. "I'll carry you." Without hesitation, I leaned forward, wrapping my arms around his neck. Shen Siqian stood up, lifting me onto his back steadily. I looked at the back of his head, and a sudden thought crossed my mind. "I dropped the flowers," I said, wiggling my empty hand. I felt a surge of disappointment. "It's okay. We can buy more next time," he said. His deep, resonant voice carried to me on the evening breeze. "After all, we'll have plenty of chances." When we reached a bench, Shen Siqian lowered himself slightly. "You can get down here for a bit." I let go of him, stepping down onto the ground and sitting down on the bench. Shen Siqian sat down beside me, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear gently. I was feeling a little dejected, staring down at the ground. From the corner of my eye, I saw Shen Siqian bend down, seemingly picking something up from the grass. The next moment, a small purple flower appeared in front of my eyes. "Don't be sad anymore, okay?" He held the flower between his fingers, twirling it gently in front of me. I turned to look at him in surprise. You picked a flower? I did, Shen Siqian admitted, a smile playing on his lips. I'll be a flower thief just for you. He brushed my hair back, tucking the flower behind my ear. He leaned back slightly to admire his handiwork, his almond-shaped eyes shining like flowing water. You look beautiful. Shen Siqian suddenly leaned in close, raising his hand to cover my eyes. His clean, fresh scent surrounded me, and I instinctively slowed my breathing. He leaned in, pressing a soft, quick kiss to the corner of my mouth before pulling away again. Instead, he placed a series of light, fleeting kisses on my cheek. They were gentle, innocent kisses, free of any lust or desire. Even the warmth of his lips was gone in the blink of an eye. Shen Siqian removed his hand from my eyes, and I found myself staring straight into the boundless tenderness in his gaze. Somehow, the small purple flower had found its way back into his hand. Shen Siqian took my hand, opening my palm and placing the flower gently in it. Keep it safe. A gift from your flower thief. I let out a soft laugh, closing my hand gently to cradle the small splash of purple. When we returned to Grandma's house, I sat on the sofa with her, watching TV together. An old, cheesy romantic drama was playing on the screen. I held half a watermelon that Shen Siqian had cut for me, scooping out the flesh with a spoon and eating it slowly. The drama told the story of a wealthy young master who defied his family to be with a poor young woman. As a result, his bank card was frozen, and he was reduced to working odd jobs to support them both. Despite all the hardships, the young master's love for the young woman never wavered. Meanwhile, his mother was determined to break them up, doing everything in her power to sabotage their relationship. Grandma and I were both completely engrossed in the tragic love story unfolding on the screen. I had to admit some classics truly stood the test of time. Grandma pointed at the TV screen, sighing with emotion. This reminds me of that time Siqian worked part-time jobs too. He said he wanted to buy you a gift with his own hard-earned money. I thought to myself, this boy has finally grown up. My heart skipped a beat. I froze, the spoon halfway to my mouth. I turned to look at Grandma in shock. A gift? For me? Grandma looked equally surprised. Yes, didn't that boy ever tell you about it? No, he didn't. I shook my head, a sharp, stabbing pain tugging at my heartstrings. Memories of a conversation from many years ago came flooding back to me. You've been so busy lately. Why are you taking on part-time jobs? Isn't your family well off enough? There's something I want to do. I think it'll mean more if I use money I earned myself. Shen Siqian, was this what you were referring to? Sigh, that's just the way Siqian is. He always does things quietly, without saying a word, Grandma said. When I was sick, he was running around taking care of me day and night. He was so tired that he fell asleep in his chair several times. I never would have known if the nurses hadn't told me. Grandma patted my hand gently, her expression serious. Grandma can tell that Siqian really loves you very much. I looked toward the tall figure in the kitchen, my vision blurring with tears. I know, Grandma, I whispered. He had loved me so much that he had taken on part-time jobs during the busy final exam period just to buy me a gift. And he had kept it a secret from me, because he wanted to surprise me. Later, even when I had said I wanted to break up, he hadn't offered any explanation or defense. I set the watermelon down, standing up and walking toward the kitchen. I walked up behind Shen Siqian, wrapping my arms around his waist tightly. My voice was thick with unshed tears. Shen Siqian. Shen Siqian immediately turned off the faucet. He tried to turn around, but I held him even tighter. Don't move yet, I said, my voice muffled against his back. I took a deep breath, pressing my forehead against his back. You fool. Why didn't you tell me back then? Shen Siqian immediately understood what I was referring to. He didn't try to move again, just resting his hands on the sink. After a long silence, he spoke, his voice hoarse with emotion. In that situation, the reason didn't seem to matter anymore. He let out a bitter, self-deprecating laugh. I was so childish back then. I wanted so badly to give you the best of everything, but I completely ignored your feelings in the process. It was my fault. I made you suffer. His simple words sent a sharp, piercing pain through my heart. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I closed my eyes, shaking my head vigorously. It wasn't your fault, Shen Siqian. We had simply been unable to overcome the distance between us. Back then, my understanding of love had been far too simple. I had thought that loving someone meant wanting to be with them every single moment. I had envied those couples who were always together, constantly comparing Shen Siqian and me to them. This had often left me feeling downcast and unhappy, and I had become increasingly harsh and critical of Shen Siqian. Every little mistake he made had seemed like a huge deal to me, just another excuse to pull back and give up. I had complained constantly about how little time we spent together, completely forgetting how difficult it had been for us to find time to stay in touch amidst our busy lives. While we were in a long-distance relationship, I had always blamed him for being too busy, but I had never once stopped to ask him if he was tired. 19-year-old Shen Siqian, were you tired? I let go of him, looking at his back with tears streaming down my face. In my mind's eye, I could see the thin, young boy standing in the snow all those years ago. The boy whose eyes had been red with unshed tears as he had watched me walk away in silence. Shen Siqian turned around, bending down to pull me into his arms gently. 19-year-old Shen Siqian hears you. He tilted his head, as if truly trying to put himself back in that time and place. He asked me to tell you that if working a little harder meant he could see Lin Yuchen, then it was all worth it. My heart melted completely. Shen Siqian took my hand again. He looked down at me, the strands of hair falling across his forehead. His eyes crinkled slightly at the corners, his expression soft and tender. You've had a long day. Why don't you go upstairs to rest first? I nodded, following Shen Siqian up the stairs. He pushed open a door, revealing a spacious, bright room filled with a faint, warm, woody scent. You can sleep here tonight, he said. I've left some clothes for you by the bed. Don't think too much about things. Get some rest early. Shen Siqian ruffled my hair gently, his voice soft and reassuring. I'll be in the next room. You can come find me anytime if you need anything. I nodded obediently, watching him leave the room. After changing into the clothes he had left for me, I sat on the bed, lost in thought as I replayed the events of the day in my mind. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually, I heard a soft knock on the door. The next moment, Shen Siqian pushed the door open and walked in. He sat down on the edge of the bed, looking at me from the side. His features were relaxed and unguarded, showing a lazy, handsome charm. It's getting late. Why aren't you asleep yet? What about you? You're not asleep either, I said, stretching my arms and smiling at him in return. Shen Siqian suddenly leaned in close to me, a faint smile playing on his lips. His dark eyes sparkled with amusement. He lowered his voice deliberately, making his tone sound ambiguous and seductive. Because I stared at Shen Siqian's magnified, handsome face, feeling a surge of alarm. I pulled the blanket tightly around myself, shrinking back against the headboard. The air conditioner in my room is broken. Huh? This unexpected turn of events left me completely stunned. I froze, the blanket clutched tightly in my hands. Shen Siqian watched my reaction, laughing so hard that he leaned back. He looked at me again, his eyes filled with playful mischief. What's that expression for? Don't tell me you thought. My face burned with embarrassment. I couldn't help but kick out at him. In the next moment, Shen Siqian lost his balance, rolling off the bed with a thud. A dull sound echoed from the floor. Shen Siqian's laughter cut off abruptly, and the room fell into an awkward silence. Did I really kick him that hard? I swallowed hard, feeling a twinge of guilt. I leaned over the edge of the bed, propping myself up to look at him on the floor. Are you okay? Before I could get a good look at him, I suddenly felt a strong pull on my wrist. My balance shifted, and I found myself sliding off the bed. Ah! I screamed in fright, squeezing my eyes shut. I had braced myself for a painful collision with the floor, but instead, I landed safely in a strong, warm embrace. The familiar scent of Shen Siqian surrounded me. I opened my eyes tentatively, locking gazes with his dark, deep eyes. Shen Siqian wrapped one arm around my back, pulling me even closer to him. Our faces were only a few inches apart. I could clearly see his thick, long eyelashes fluttering gently. Shen Siqian raised an eyebrow, a playful smile on his lips. You're quite strong, aren't you? As he spoke, his hands rested on my waist, his fingers pressing gently as if in mock threat. I was completely immobilized by his grip. I didn't know where to put my hands, so I just clung tightly to the front of his shirt. I turned my face away, my eyes darting around the room as I tried awkwardly to change the subject. The weather is quite cool tonight, isn't it? You're the one with the air conditioner. Of course you think it's cool, Shen Siqian retorted. He turned my face back to his, staring at me silently for a few seconds. Before I could react, he cupped my chin in his hand and pressed his lips against mine. He supported the back of my neck with one hand to keep me from bumping against the edge of the bed. He lowered his head, deepening the kiss and stealing my breath away. When the kiss finally ended, Shen Siqian let out a soft cough. His eyes were filled with a hazy mist, and his expression was one of pure contentment, like a lazy, satisfied cat. He smiled, pinching the back of my neck gently. We're even now. I glared up at him, punching him lightly in the chest. Go back to your own room. Shen Siqian wrapped his hand around my fist, frowning at me with a wounded expression in his bright, moist eyes. Won't you let me stay? I pulled my hand free from his grasp with a lot of effort. Good night. If you're going to sleep, just sleep. Why are you holding me? I stared at the arm wrapped around my waist and pushed the person behind me. Be good. Don't move. Shen Siqian's voice was thick with exhaustion, slurred and indistinct. He nuzzled his head against my back, then pulled me into a loose embrace again. It wasn't long before the sound of his steady, even breathing filled my ears. In the silent darkness of the night, emotions that had been suppressed for years began to stir once more. A memory suddenly surfaced of a dinner with Dao Yingying, and the words she'd spoken to me. Hey, you're not still hung up on Shen Siqian, are you? Back then, I'd stirred my coffee absently, and replied without much thought. How could I be? It's been years. No matter how hard it was to let go, those feelings have long since faded. Then why haven't you dated anyone all these years? I'd frozen mid-stir, staring at my coffee for a moment before answering with a non sequitur. Being single is nice too. As the memory faded, I slowly rolled over to face Shen Siqian. By the faint light filtering through the curtains, I traced the contours of his face with my eyes. After a long while, I whispered so softly it was barely audible. Having you here might be even better. When we woke up the next day, we planned to leave after breakfast. Before we got in the car, Grandma pulled me aside, a gentle smile on her face. Come visit Grandma more often when you have time. She shot a glance at Shen Siqian, cleared her throat loudly, and suddenly raised her voice. If Siqian ever bullies you, you tell Grandma immediately. I'll teach him a lesson for you. With that, she picked up a broom standing nearby and wrapped it lightly against the courtyard wall a few times, as if by accident. The crisp tapping sound made me burst out laughing. I nodded vigorously. I will, Grandma. Shen Siqian walked over too, a smile on his face, though it looked somewhat forced. Yes, Grandma. After we returned home, Shen Siqian and I kept in touch on and off. 2 months passed in the blink of an eye, and I grew accustomed to having him in my life. During those 2 months, Shen Siqian never crossed any lines again. Instead, he stayed by my side in a way that was neither too close nor too distant. Like the bouquet of flowers I received every week, the goodnight message I got every evening before bed, and the occasional dinner we shared. One afternoon, I came across a video online. The headline read, Patient's family causes disturbance at First People's Hospital. First People's Hospital? That was where Shen Siqian worked. I frowned and clicked on the video immediately. The audio was chaotic and noisy. 2 men in their 30s were pointing at a female doctor and shouting insults, their language crude and vulgar. The female doctor leaned forward slightly, her hands raised in front of her as if trying to explain something, but her voice was drowned out by the abuse. Doctors and nurses nearby tried to intervene, and security guards soon arrived to restrain the 2 men. As one of the men was being led away, he suddenly lashed out, stamping hard on a security guard's foot. He broke free from their grasp and charged at the female doctor with a roar. The female doctor had no time to react. She was pinned to the ground and screamed in terror. The man pulled out a knife, raised it high above his head, and it looked like he was about to stab her. Suddenly, a figure rushed out from the crowd, tackled the man, and began to struggle with him. From his clothes, it was clear he was a male doctor. After a few moments of intense fighting, the doctor's mask was torn off, revealing a familiar face. Shen Siqian. My heart jumped into my throat, and a cold chill ran down my spine. Shen Siqian was gradually losing the upper hand. In the next second, the man flipped him over and pinned him to the ground. Taking advantage of Shen Siqian's weakened grip, he raised the knife again. The security guards finally reacted, rushing over to grab the man around the waist and pull him back. A flash of cold steel. I watched in horror as the knife plunged straight into Shen Siqian's thigh, then was pulled out just as quickly. A large patch of red spread across his white coat. In that instant, I felt as if I'd been plunged into an ice cave. My blood turned to ice in my veins. The scene descended into even greater chaos as the crowd surged toward Shen Siqian. The cameraman's hands shook violently, and the video cut off abruptly amid the screams. A loud ringing filled my ears. My fingers went limp, and my phone slipped from my hand and crashed to the floor. My mind replayed that shocking image of red. My heart felt like it was being torn apart by two opposing forces. A vague yet sharp pain spreading through my chest. How could this happen? We'd just made plans to have dinner together that morning. I bit down hard on my lower lip, picked up my phone with trembling hands, and ran out the door. After only a few steps, I tripped over something and fell to my knees with a jolt. A sharp pain shot through my knees. My eyes stung, and I found myself thinking of Shen Siqian's usual gentle, indulgent expression when he coaxed me. Tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I forced down the panic in my chest, pushed myself up from the floor, and ran as fast as I could. I hastily flagged down a taxi by the side of the road and leaned back against the seat, gasping for breath. First People's Hospital, please. As I watched the scenery flash by outside the window, my mind was filled with thoughts of Shen Siqian, the man who made me laugh, who loved to play innocent, who was always scheming little ways to get my attention. I only ask that you're okay, I whispered through my tears, my hands clasped together in a prayer. How strange. I'd never believed in gods or Buddhas, yet in that moment, I prayed through my tears, begging them to watch over my boy. As soon as I got out of the taxi, I rushed into the hospital without a moment's hesitation. After asking for directions repeatedly, I finally reached the operating room. A beautiful female doctor was sobbing uncontrollably. It's all my fault. Siqian got hurt because of me. Zhao Yan, don't be sad. Dr. Shen will be fine. Someone beside her hurried to comfort her. A thought flashed through my mind like lightning. I lifted my tear-blurred eyes, hardly daring to believe my ears. Shen Zhaoyan? Who are you? Chen Zhaoyan wiped her tears, frowned, and looked at me warily. How do you know my name? I composed myself and looked at her with a sneer. Even if you don't know who I am, you should remember what you did. I let out a cold snort and narrowed my eyes. You played no small part in Shen Siqian and me breaking up back then. Chen Zhaoyan's expression faltered for a split second, but she quickly regained her composure. So it's you. Even if I was wrong back then, you're not his girlfriend anymore. She curled her lips into a smile, her eyes shining with confident determination. Now we're competing on equal footing. Besides, Siqian got hurt saving me. That means he still cares about me. I let out a scoff. Don't flatter yourself. Knowing Shen Siqian's character, he'd even save a dog that was being beaten. Don't ask me how I know. He actually did it once. It was after school and we were walking home together. Shen Siqian heard a dog whimpering from an alley. He immediately picked up a wooden stick and rushed in. When he came out again, he was holding a dog in his arms covered in wounds. I stepped back a few paces, my heart aching with worry and fear. I stood there, on the verge of tears. I appreciate it and all, but I'm scared of dogs. Thinking back on it, I muttered to myself, Shen Siqian, you really haven't changed at all. The operating room door opened and I hurried over, my palms sweating with nervousness. How is he, doctor? The doctor wiped the sweat from his forehead and explained slowly. Dr. Shen is out of danger now. He'll wake up soon. He needs to take it easy in the coming days, but there should be no sequelae under normal circumstances. Thank you. Thank you so much. I let out a long breath of relief and followed the doctor to the ward. Chen Zhaoyan called out from behind me. I never would have guessed you care about Siqian this much too. I ignored her and kept walking. In the ward, I glanced at Shen Siqian's pale face, then quickly looked away, my eyes stinging with tears again. You fool. You always have to be the hero. If I wasn't a hero, how would I make you worry about me? A weak voice sounded, laced with a faint smile. You're awake? I looked down at him in surprise and joy. Shen Siqian nodded gently and broke into a soft, tender smile. His eyes were misty, as if they held 1,000 emotions, so captivating that one could drown in their depth. I'm sorry for making you worry again. His obedient, submissive expression was enough to diffuse most of the anger in my heart. I had just opened my mouth when there was a knock on the door. An unwelcome figure entered the ward. Siqian, thank you for saving me this morning. Zhang Zhaoyuan's cheeks were slightly flushed. She looked at Shen Siqian with eyes that seemed to speak volumes, then took a few steps forward and reached out to touch his face. Shen Siqian dodged her hand indifferently, a cold glint in his eyes. Dr. Chen, I thought I made myself clear to you back then, he said, his frown deepening. You hurt my girlfriend. I will never forgive you, and I hope you will stop interfering in her life. I saved you not because of who you are, but out of basic humanity. The education I've ever received all my life has taught me that I cannot stand by and do nothing in the face of such things. I would have saved anyone in that situation. There's no need for you to read too much into it. My only girlfriend is Lin Yishan. Shen Siqian turned his gaze to me and suddenly smiled, the coldness in his eyes melting away completely. And she will always be the only one. So don't waste any more of your time on me. I kept a calm expression on my face, but my heart was pounding wildly in my chest. I had to admit, this feeling of being chosen so firmly was incredibly satisfying. I pressed my lips together, cleared my throat lightly, and looked at Chen Zhaoyuan. Dr. Chen, don't you have your own work to do? Chen Zhaoyuan's expression stiffened slightly, and the flush completely faded from her cheeks. She took a deep breath and forced a smile. Very well, I understand, Dr. Shen. With that, she turned and walked out of the ward without looking back. You certainly are popular, Dr. Shen. I raised an eyebrow and teased him. But the memory of the video made me sober up quickly. What exactly happened back then? Shen Siqian pressed his lips together, a look of gravity on his face. The patient's condition worsened because he failed to follow medical advice after being discharged. Chen Zhaoyuan was his attending physician, so they targeted her. Doctor-patient conflicts are inevitable, but I never expected this one to turn so extreme. Shen Siqian pinched the bridge of his nose and let out a soft sigh. Looking at him, I suddenly felt a surge of heartache. I had always known that being a doctor was not an easy job, filled with countless visible and invisible difficulties. But it was only when I set aside my role as an outsider and saw the challenges they faced up close that I truly understood their helplessness. The gap between different professions is not unbridgeable. For a moment, perhaps when I shed tears for him, our hearts beat in perfect harmony. No matter what happens, I'll always be by your side, I blurted out, staring at his downcast eyes. When I went to see Shen Siqian the next day, he had just finished giving his statement to the police. As I walked into the ward, I happened to bump into the police officers as they were leaving. We exchanged nods of greeting. One of the officers stopped and looked at me with admiration. Dr. Shen is incredibly brave. He fixed me with a firm gaze, his voice resolute. The law will definitely deliver a just verdict and make the lawbreakers pay for their actions. It will, I nodded, a sense of security and trust welling up in my heart. In the hospital bed, Shen Siqian was leaning against the headboard. Even in his weakened state, his handsomeness was undeniable. I walked to the bed and sat down on the chair beside it, speaking earnestly. I still admire you, Shen Siqian. Whether it was in the past or now, you always step forward without hesitation when something like this happens. I paused, my fingers twisting the bedsheet nervously. But next time, can you please take care of yourself first? The fear I'd felt back then still lingered in my heart. It was only in that moment that I realized Shen Siqian had already occupied most of my heart without my noticing. The thought of losing him made me feel as if a part of me had been torn away. A sharp, empty pain. All right, I promise you. Shen Siqian reached out and covered the back of my hand with his, then laced his fingers through mine and gave my hand a gentle squeeze. Time flew by, and soon it was the day Shen Siqian was discharged from the hospital. At the hospital gate, Shen Siqian looked up at the distance, the lines of his profile soft and smooth. The last time I left this place was The last time. How did he manage to say such a nonsensical thing in such a melancholy tone? I couldn't help but remind him. Don't celebrate too early, Dr. Shen. You'll be back here tomorrow. He let out a helpless sigh. You really didn't have to point that out. Come on. He took a long stride and walked forward. After a few steps, Shen Siqian suddenly turned to look at me, his hair fluttering in the wind. Lin Yuchan. A strong premonition hit me, and the sound of my own heartbeat suddenly became crystal clear. Shen Siqian curved his lips into a soft smile, his voice low and seductive. Today is just an ordinary day and the weather isn't exactly pleasant. But I believe that ordinary days deserve to be given new meaning. He let out a soft laugh, his eyes burning with intensity as he stared at me. What I'm about to say might seem impulsive, but please believe me. My love for you can stand the test of the most mundane days. Will you be with me? I'll send you flowers for the rest of my life. This time I did not hesitate. I firmly took his hand, just like I had many years ago when I looked at the boy in his school uniform and said, I do. The end.